When I was 4, I went to work with my dad. My dad was a lawyer. And it happened that he had a last-minute deposition in Denver right before our spring break. So, armed with a box of paper clips, I went in with him and sat at the chair next to him as he engaged with the other lawyers in the courtroom. After a long while, we walked out hand in hand, and he asked, "Well, Sarah, what did you think?" Without skipping a beat, I said, "Dad, you have one of the most boring jobs ever. And lawyers don't know how to dress themselves." That guy had 2 different colored socks on. I knew. From an early age, I was able to judge, and perhaps for my own well-being, that I figured out the more appropriate career for myself. I still had that place of judgment with critical eyes. See, there's a part of that little girl who is seeking perfection, on that pursuit of perfection, which Jesus asks us to go along. He says, be like God, be perfect like God, as he is. Be perfect and in harmony and congruency with God's character. And for most of us, being perfect has to be broken down into a few tasks, a few virtues that we can hope to master. Benjamin Franklin engaged in this. At the age of 20, he came up with a systematic approach to moral perfection. He chose 13 virtues that he would perfect week by week. One week he would have one virtue, and then after mastering that one, he would move to the next one. Except he noticed on week 3 and 4 and so on that the perfected virtue of week 1 and 2 seemed to falter, seemed to fail him a little bit. It ended up that his systematic approach just didn't work. But he said, "I was a better and happier man than I otherwise should have been if I had not attempted it." There's something about the pursuit of a virtue that leaves an impression. And such a pursuit is read in today's passage from the Sermon on the Mount. So if you have your Bibles with you, as we've invited you to bring, I'd invite you to turn to Matthew. This is going to be Matthew 7, verses 1 through 5. "Don't judge, so that you won't be judged. You'll receive the same judgment you give. Whatever you deal out will be dealt out to you. Why do you see the splinter in your brother's or sister's eye, but don't notice the log in your own eye? How can you say to your brother or sister, 'Let me take that splinter out of your eye,' when there's a log in your own eye? You deceive yourself. First, take the log out of your eye, and then you'll see clearly to take the splinter out of your brother or sister's eye." Don't. The word "don't" is an interesting way, tricky way of teaching or changing behavior. For instance, if I were to tell you, "Don't think about an elephant in a tutu," I would readily imagine what is on your mind. But Jesus doesn't leave us there. Jesus doesn't leave us with just "don't judge." He actually draws us into his message, to the essence of it, where we find relationships taking precedent. And these aren't simply the relationships about mismatched socks, but it's learning about relationships between the marginalized people and privileged people, of native-born and immigrants or refugees, of lonely, disillusioned, and anxious people. With the masks off, Jesus says that we can find congruency and harmony with each other. With self-awareness, we can see our growing edges, our limitations. With grace and humility, we adjust. And then with clear eyes, we're able to see those around us and notice that those specks have also disappeared. And if it was this easy, I'd sign up like that and move on my way. But I realize there are other obstacles in our way when it comes to judgment. Emotions are one of the biggest. They somehow fuel and give energy to judging in ways that overwhelm us, even when we're trying to maintain healthy and congruent relationships with others. I fear, so I judge. Others will see my weaknesses and make fun of me and humiliate me. Others are better than me. I might not be good enough. There might not be enough love. I might not deserve or receive love. I fear, so I judge. I distrust, so I judge. What will I risk? What will I lose if I trust these people? I don't know if it's worth it. I distrust, so I judge. And I feel anger. I feel anger that my situation is so unfair in comparison to others. I feel injustice and moral wrongdoing. Why is it that other people get for free what I have to work so hard for? I feel angry, so I judge. Many of these emotions can cloud what is right and good and confuse it and mix it in with what is wrong. The musical Wicked portrays this so well. And it's one of my favorite shows. I even have socks. But I realize that I have a quandary when on what foot should I put Elphaba or Glinda, the good or the bad, or, well, you see, this is the story that precedes Dorothy in Oz, and it explores the relationships between good and evil, what deems the Witch of the West wicked, and while Glinda can maintain the good name. Fear. Fear takes over the leaders of Oz as they try to hide their less than credible characteristics and abilities. Remember, it's the Wizard of Oz who's behind the curtain. Distrust. Distrust of animals forces them into cages despite their ability to talk and great wisdom. And anger. Well, Elphaba needs something to help her fly, as she is used as a scapegoat for all of Oz's problems. And yet Elphaba, the one that we call the Wicked Witch of the West, is green and unmasked, and she is the one who questions cruelty of the vulnerable and outcasts, while Glinda, the good witch, is the one who obeys authority with her chameleon-like personality. This leads Oz, all of the people of Oz, to judge as only their emerald glasses would allow them, as if they have a log in their eye. And the story leaves the audience wondering and perhaps redefining who is wicked. And we are left to determine the congruency of actions to the character of a person. Jesus offers us a similar space as we examine our own congruency and harmony to God's character when he invites us in to the middle of his sermon. Do I have a log in my eye? Jesus expresses the character of God in order that we might wonder and redefine and claim it. And as we come to understand a congruent life of integrity, Jesus directs us to those roots that ground our story further into ourselves, and we can ask hard questions. Are we being fully honest about our deepest spiritual needs? Our need for rest, humor, solitude, connection or stillness, maybe even play. I sense it is here with the emotional motivators that it is a direct connection to a congruent life. And without congruency or harmony of character, does judgment simply become our default? Let me say that again. Without congruency and harmony of character, does judgment simply become our default? Jesus' sermon illustrates how God's character is a gift to humanity to live in integrity with his grace. John Donahue was an Irish poet, an author, and priest. He said it this way: when you beautify your mind, you beautify your world. You learn to see differently. In what seemed like dead situations, secret possibilities and invitations begin to open before you. In old suffering that held you long paralyzed, you find new keys. When your mind awakens, your life becomes alive, and the creative adventure of your soul takes off. Passion and compassion become your new companions. As St. Irenaeus said in the 2nd century, the glory of God is the human person fully alive. And is so with that invitation to be fully alive as humans that I'm going to invite us into a bit of practice so that we can move the words in these from the Bible and from my sermon from our head to our heart. With a short guided meditation, we will practice the pursuit of God's character and resting in God's grace. And I know that everyone comes with their own rhythm of life, and so maybe stillness is not quite where you are. So I would invite you somehow to engage with what it means to be in judgment or in admiration. Just as we go to the studio to practice yoga or to the mountain to practice gratitude for God's creation, this place can also be a space of practice. So, with me, I would invite you to close your eyes, lay your hands on your lap, face up, and take a deep breath. Your hands represent judgment and admiration. Choose one hand and imagine a space of judgment. Give it details with specific situations or persons or things where you found yourself judging. How do you feel? How does your body react? What are the words or colors or tensions you experience? Stay in this place for just a moment. Come back to center, neutral, and let the judging experience go. Now go to the other hand and imagine a place of admiration. Give it details, defining the people or things where you experience admiration. How do you feel? How does your body react? What are the colors or tensions that you experience? Stay here for just one more moment. Now come back to center, neutral, letting the admiration experience go. Remember now the feelings and experiences of that place of judgment and lay that hand on top of the other. This is you taking judgment into a place of admiration. How does that space change? What is lost? What is gained? How does your body feel? Stay here for just a bit, even if it feels difficult. Come back to center, neutral. And now, remember the feelings and experiences of that place of admiration and lay that hand on top of the other. This is you taking admiration into a place of judgment. How does that space change? What is gained? What is lost? How does your body feel? Come back to neutral. Take a deep breath and open your eyes slowly. As we reflect on this short meditation, you'll hear words of God's faithfulness and grace speaking to you so that when you look in your mirror, you might see a new reflection and you might know who it is that you are meant to be. You may join with your voice in the words of Great is Thy Faithfulness.